Hello everyone, today I'll be teaching you about frame rates and shutter speeds. I'm going to be breaking this down in a few simple sections. First I'm going to be talking about what frame rates we have, what shutter speeds we have, and then how you can use shutter speed and frame rate in a creative way to achieve your creative vision. So when it comes to frame rates, there are pretty much two groups you will encounter: NTSC and PAL. So the majority of the world uses NTSC, which is 24 FPS, 48 FPS, 60 FPS, 120 FPS, or at least those will be the frame rates you'll be coming across most commonly. And then you have PAL, which is used on TV in Europe a lot, but majority of the filmmakers still shoot in NTSC, but they are 25, 50, 100, and so on. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to be focusing on NTSC, which is the most common used frame rates. So to decide when to use a certain frame rate, you need to decide what kind of scene it's going to be. For example, for an interview scene, you do not want any slow motion, you do not want any jitteriness. So what you want to do most likely is shoot 24 FPS to have a natural motion blur, like this, how we're sitting right now. So the main reason you shoot 24 when filming a talking headshot or an interview is because you don't want to slow things down and you don't want things to look unnatural. The reason 24 looks so natural is because it has very natural motion blur. Since the shutter speed must always be double the frame rate, so 1/48th, or on some other cameras it's 1/50th because they're not able to shoot 1/48th, the motion blur is very natural, as you can see. And because of that, the shot looks very natural. And when somebody's talking, you're looking at somebody, right? You want it to be convincing and natural looking instead of it being a robot. So when it comes to the majority of my B-roll, I shoot at 60 FPS. This is because for all the B-roll I'm gonna have over my interviews and stuff like that, I'm most likely gonna slow them down to create a smooth look and a distinction between the interview and the B-roll, which creates two different worlds that complement each other. So for 60 FPS you wanna shoot over 1/120th of a second, which basically means double the frame rate again. This creates smooth motion blur for these kinds of B-roll shots. Now when it comes to actual slow motion, for example, my camera can shoot 4K up to 120 FPS, which is the FX3. According to the shutter rule, you want to shoot double the FPS. So you want to shoot at 1/240th of a second. Although, when it comes to slow motion, very often want things to be sharp and not to have too much motion blur. So in these cases, when you want to capture an animal flying away, you might want to up your shutter speed to 1/300th or a little bit higher to get every frame sharp. Now, obviously there are some exceptions to this rule, and those main exceptions are creative choices. For example, when you're shooting an action scene and you want more energy in it, you can up the shutter speed and maybe the frame rate if you want to go for that kind of look. But I would stick to the shutter speed to create more energy in the shots, because the things are sharp and you can see what's happening and it's choppy, you know, because of choppiness, there's more energy there. Cuts and choppiness create energy. And then you might have the opposite, where you want to create a dream scene. You can put on 24 FPS, but you put your shutter on 1/15th of a second, which is way longer than the average frame length, which makes a super choppy look, but it becomes super dreamy because you get these very long motion blurs that look somewhat dreamlike. And you can go as far as you want with that. Obviously, you can think of anything you want the effect to achieve. You can get it with your shutter speed. Just keep in mind, the higher you put it, the more choppy it becomes. The lower you put it, the more blurry but also choppy it becomes, but the longer your motion blur will be, so the more angelic or dreamlike. So yeah, this was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learned something, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye bye!